He didn't argue when she said it. He didn't smile either. "You're not my type," the millionaire said, loud enough for the people at the table to hear. Crystal glasses paused mid-air. Someone laughed, unsure if it was a joke. The single dad across from her only nodded once. Then he stood up and did something no one there expected him to do. Not to impress her, not to defend himself, but because he was done being invisible. Before we continue, take a quiet second with me. If stories about dignity, judgment, and unexpected turns matter to you, please like this video. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I really do read them. And if you enjoy calm, human stories like this, subscribe and stay with us. Now, let's go back to how they ended up at that table. The restaurant was the kind of place where the menu didn't list prices, not because it was generous, but because it didn't need to be. People here didn't ask, they ordered. Marcus Hale noticed that immediately. He noticed a lot of things like that now. He stood just inside the entrance, adjusting the collar of the jacket he'd borrowed from his brother. It fit well enough if he didn't move his shoulders too much. Dark navy, clean, pressed that morning in the steam of his shower. The host smiled professionally, not warmly. Warmth took time. "Reservation?" she asked. "Yes," Marcus said. His voice was steady. "Hale. Marcus." She scanned the tablet, her finger paused, then she looked up again, measuring him without meaning to. "Right this way." The dining room was full, but quiet. Conversations stayed low, as if raised voices would cost extra. Marcus followed her past tables where men in tailored suits leaned back comfortably, where women spoke with practiced ease, hands resting lightly on crystal glasses. He felt the familiar tightening in his chest, not fear, not shame, just awareness. He didn't belong to this world anymore. He used to, once, before life narrowed. The host stopped at a corner table near the window. The city glowed outside, distant and unreal. "Your guest has already arrived," she said, and stepped away. Victoria Langford sat with perfect posture, her back straight, her phone face down on the table, as if it knew better than to interrupt her. She wore a simple black dress that probably cost more than Marcus's car. No jewelry except a thin gold watch. She didn't look up right away. Marcus waited. When she did lift her eyes, they moved over him quickly. Shoes, jacket, hands, face. Not curious, assessing. "You're Marcus," she said. "Yes." She nodded once, as if confirming something she had already decided. "Victoria." "I know." A flicker crossed her face, surprise maybe, or irritation. "Sit," she gestured lightly. He pulled out the chair and sat. He placed his hands in his lap, the way he did at parent-teacher meetings, a habit of making himself smaller. They were quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. "I'll be honest," she said. "I don't usually do blind dates." "Neither do I," Marcus replied. She glanced at him again, this time longer. "Then why are you here?" He thought of his daughter, Emma, of her backpack by the door that morning, of the note she'd left on the fridge in crooked handwriting. "Good luck, Dad." A friend insisted, said it was time. Victoria exhaled softly through her nose, not unkindly, not kindly either. "Time for what?" He met her eyes. "To remember I'm still a person." That gave her pause, just for a second. The waiter arrived. Water was poured. Orders were placed. Victoria ordered without looking at the menu. Marcus chose carefully, staying near the middle of the page. "So," she said once they were alone again, "tell me about yourself." He didn't rush. He never rushed answers anymore. "I work in logistics, warehouse operations, night shifts mostly." "Why nights?" "Better pay, and it lets me be home in the mornings." "For my daughter." That did it. Something in Victoria's expression changed, not dramatically, just enough. "How old?" she asked. "8." Another pause. "You're a single dad," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." She leaned back slightly, crossing her arms, not defensively, deliberately. "I should tell you something now, so we don't waste each other's time." Marcus nodded. He felt the answer coming before she said it. "I don't date single fathers." There it was, clean, polite, efficient. He didn't react. He'd heard versions of it before, usually quieter, usually later. "May I ask why?" he said. She tilted her head. "Because I don't want to compete with a child, because I don't want my life scheduled around someone else's past, because I've worked too hard to be flexible." Her voice stayed calm, reasonable. She believed what she was saying. "I see," Marcus said. "You're very composed," she noted. "I try to be." She studied him again. "Most men argue." "There's nothing to argue." The waiter returned with bread, set it down, left. Victoria picked up her glass. "So," she continued, "you're not my type." She said it casually, a statement, not a verdict, but the table next to them went quiet anyway. Someone had heard. Marcus felt the familiar heat at the back of his neck, the instinct to shrink, to apologize for existing where he wasn't wanted. He didn't. Instead, he looked around the room, at the people who hadn't been listening until now, at the mirrors and the lights, and the quiet luxury that made rejection feel official. He thought of Emma again, of how she watched him when other kids' parents talked over him, of how she waited to see what he'd do. He stood up. Victoria blinked. "Excuse me?" "I won't take much time." A few heads turned. He picked up his jacket from the back of the chair, smoothed it once. Then he spoke, not loudly, just clearly. "You're right. I'm not your type." The room listened now. "And that's fine. You're allowed to want what you want." Victoria's expression tightened, not anger, control. "But I won't sit here and let my life be reduced to a liability, not in private and not in public." Someone shifted uncomfortably nearby. "I came here because I thought maybe this would be a conversation, not an evaluation." He met her eyes again, calm, not shaking. "So I'm leaving, not because you rejected me, but because I respect myself enough not to stay." Silence spread like a held breath. He nodded once to her, then he turned and walked toward the exit. He didn't know yet that half the room had just learned his name. He didn't know what Victoria would do next. He only knew that for the first time in a long while, he'd chosen himself. Marcus noticed the change before it was announced. The room didn't grow louder or quieter. It tilted. Conversations leaned in certain directions. Glances lingered half a second longer. The kind of shift you felt more than saw. He recognized it from other moments in his life, when something unspoken had entered the space and everyone sensed it at once. Victoria had just said, "You're not my type." Not cruelly, not loudly, just clearly. The word settled between them like a closed door. Marcus nodded once, not in agreement, in acknowledgement. He didn't smile, he didn't flinch either. He simply adjusted his chair, the way someone does when preparing to leave a meeting that's run its course. "I understand," he said. That was it. No defense, no explanation, no appeal. Victoria blinked. It was subtle, but it happened. She had expected something else, a reaction, an argument, maybe disappointment disguised as politeness. Men usually offered reasons, or apologies, or tried to renegotiate the moment. Marcus didn't. He picked up his water glass, took a slow sip, and set it back down carefully, as if he were returning something borrowed. For a second, neither of them spoke. Around them, the restaurant continued. Silverware clinked. Someone laughed too loudly at a nearby table.
A server passed with a tray of wine glasses, each one catching the light. Victoria felt an unfamiliar tightening in her chest. Not guilt, not regret, something closer to disorientation. She had ended things. Why did it feel unfinished? "I hope you don't take that personally," she added reflexively. The words sounded rehearsed the moment they left her mouth. Marcus met her eyes. His gaze was steady, not challenging, not wounded, just present. "I don't," he said. "You were honest." That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. The silence stretched again, this time heavier. Victoria glanced at his hands. They were resting on the table, fingers loosely interlaced, clean, rough around the knuckles, the hands of someone who worked with them. He noticed a faint scar near his thumb, old. He wasn't trying to hide anything, not his background, not his life. She realized suddenly that she hadn't asked him a single question about himself beyond the basics, and that he hadn't volunteered anything extra either. "You said you have a daughter," she said, more quietly now. "Yes." "How old?" "9." Another pause. Victoria leaned back slightly in her chair. She folded her arms, not defensively, but as if bracing against a thought she didn't want to finish. "That's a lot," she said. Marcus didn't respond right away. When he did, his voice was even. "It is." She waited for him to say more. He didn't. "You're her primary caregiver?" Victoria asked. "Yes." "No partner involved?" "No." The answers came without bitterness, without pride, just facts. Victoria looked down at the tablecloth, white, perfectly pressed, no stains. Everything in this restaurant was designed to erase mess, to suggest control. "This is why I don't date single fathers," she said, finally. "It complicates things." Marcus nodded again. "I figured." She looked up, surprised. "You did?" "Yes." "Then why agree to the date?" The question slipped out before she could soften it. Marcus considered it. He didn't rush. He had learned over years of raising a child alone that pauses mattered, that answering too quickly often meant answering wrong. "Because sometimes," he said, "people surprise you." Victoria studied his face. She was used to reading rooms, reading balance sheets, reading risk, but him she found harder to place. "You don't seem upset," she said. "I'm not," Marcus replied. That wasn't entirely true, but it was close enough. He was disappointed, yes, but not because she had rejected him. He had expected that outcome the moment he'd walked in. The jacket, the way she'd scanned him, the invisible line between our worlds. What unsettled him was something else. He had liked her voice, calm, measured. He had liked that she didn't fill silences with noise, that she listened, even when she decided. It felt strange to appreciate someone who had just closed a door on you. "I should go," Marcus said, pushing his chair back slightly. Victoria hesitated. "Already?" "Yes." "You don't have to rush." He smiled then, just a small one, polite, contained. "I do," he said. "I told my daughter I'd be home before she fell asleep." Something shifted again. Victoria felt it clearly this time. She straightened. "You don't have a babysitter?" "No. She stays with my sister on date nights." "Date nights?" Victoria repeated softly. He shrugged. "They're rare." She glanced at the menu again, at the prices she hadn't noticed in years, at the assumption that everyone here belonged. "I didn't mean to imply," she started. Marcus stood. "It's okay," he said. "You didn't." He reached for his jacket. The server appeared immediately, as if summoned by the movement. "Will you be needing the check?" she asked, looking between them. Marcus nodded. "Yes." "I've got it," Victoria said, at the same time. Marcus turned to her. "No," he said, firm but gentle. "Thank you." She raised an eyebrow. "I insist." "I don't." Another small pause. Victoria let her hand fall back to her lap. The server placed the check down, uncertain. Marcus took it without comment. He didn't look at the total. He already knew what it would be. He had planned for it, saved for it, chosen the place knowing exactly what it meant. He stood there for a moment, as if deciding whether to say something else. He didn't. "Take care," he said. "You too," Victoria replied. He walked away. Victoria watched him go, not because she was curious, because something in her hadn't settled. At the door, Marcus paused briefly, letting another couple pass. The woman laughed, resting her hand on the man's arm. The man leaned in, confident, easy. Marcus held the door open for them, polite, invisible. Then he stepped out into the night. Victoria sat alone at the table with the untouched glass of water in front of her. She realized she hadn't finished her meal. She hadn't even noticed. The restaurant felt different now, smaller, sharper. She checked her phone. No new messages, no emergencies, no decisions waiting. And yet, for the first time that evening, she felt unsettled. Not because she had rejected someone, but because she wasn't entirely sure she understood why.
Marcus walked the 6 blocks home instead of taking the bus. The night air was cool enough to clear his head. Street lights reflected off damp pavement, stretching shadows longer than they should have been. He replayed the evening once, then stopped himself. There was nothing to fix, nothing to reinterpret. The moment had passed, cleanly. At home, the apartment was quiet, too quiet. Lucy's light was on, though. He heard the faint sound of pages turning. "You're late," she said from her bed without looking up. "5 minutes," Marcus replied, hanging his jacket carefully on the chair. "I walked." She glanced at him then, eyes sharp in the way only children's eyes could be. "Did it go bad?" Marcus sat on the edge of her bed. He considered lying. He didn't. "It just didn't go anywhere," he said. Lucy nodded, as if that confirmed something she already knew. She closed her book and set it aside. "That's okay," she said. "Most things don't." He smiled despite himself. "You sound very wise." She shrugged. "Mrs. Klein says expectations are just guesses we believe too hard." "Mrs. Klein sounds dangerous. She teaches 3rd grade." Marcus tucked the blanket around Lucy's shoulders. She reached for his wrist before he could stand. "Did she look at you funny?" He paused. "Why do you ask?" "Because sometimes people do that, like they're checking if you fit somewhere." Marcus brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. She wasn't unkind. Lucy studied him. "That's not what I asked." He exhaled slowly. "Yes, a little." Lucy frowned, not angry, thoughtful. "She missed it then," she said. "Missed what?" "You." Marcus didn't respond. He kissed her forehead instead and turned off the light. Down the hall, he stood for a moment, listening to the quiet. He felt steady, tired, but steady. He made a sandwich, ate half of it, and left the rest on a plate by the sink. Tomorrow would come early. Across town, Victoria Langford sat in the back seat of a car she hadn't driven herself in years. The city blurred past the tinted windows. Her reflection stared back at her, distorted slightly by the glass. She looked the same as always, controlled, polished, alone. She hadn't expected the date to follow her home. Her assistant's voice echoed faintly in her head. "You don't owe anyone anything." It was a phrase she'd repeated often, usually to herself. Yet the words felt thin now. At home, Victoria kicked off her shoes and poured herself a drink she didn't finish. She stood at the window, staring down on streets she rarely walked. Her phone buzzed once, a board member asking about tomorrow's agenda. She typed a response, deleted it, then typed it again. Her gaze drifted to the small pile of mail on the counter, bills, invitations, a folded envelope she didn't recognize. She opened it. Inside was a handwritten note.
The return address belonged to the Outreach Foundation her company funded quietly, without press. The letter was short. Miss Langford, I don't know if this will ever reach you. My name is Lucy Reed. My dad works very hard. He fixes things at night and makes my lunch every morning. He says your company helped keep our after-school center open. I wanted to say thank you. Also, my dad doesn't think he's very interesting, but he is, just so you know. Lucy. Victoria read it twice, then a third time. Her chest tightened in a way she didn't like. Not pain, recognition. She sank onto the couch, the letter trembling slightly in her hand. Lucy Reed. The name clicked into place. Marcus, the man at the restaurant. She closed her eyes. The next morning, Marcus returned to his routine. Coffee at dawn, lunch packed. Lucy dropped at school with a kiss and a warning not to forget the permission slip. Work blurred into itself. Pipes, lights, quiet hallways. Near the end of his shift, his supervisor waved him over. You're needed upstairs, executive floor. Marcus wiped his hands on a rag. What for? The supervisor shrugged. No idea. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. The doors opened onto carpet that muted sound completely. Victoria stood near the window of her office when he entered. No jacket, no phone, just the letter on her desk. She turned when she heard him. Mr. Reed? Marcus stopped just inside the doorway. Yes? Please, she gestured. Sit. He did. She picked up the letter. Did your daughter write this? Marcus recognized the handwriting immediately. His shoulders tightened. Yes, he said. I received it this morning. I didn't know she sent it. She shouldn't have. Victoria raised a hand. I'm not upset. Silence settled. She thanked me, she said, and she defended you. Marcus swallowed. Lucy tends to do that. Victoria looked at him, really looked this time. I was wrong, she said. Marcus didn't respond. I thought I was protecting myself, but I think I was protecting my assumptions. He waited. I don't expect anything from you. I won't ask for forgiveness. I just needed you to know. I see it now. Marcus met her eyes. There was no triumph in his expression, no relief either. Thank you for telling me, he said. She nodded. That's all. He stood. As he turned to leave, Victoria spoke again. Mr. Reed? He paused. If you ever decide, she said carefully, to surprise someone again, I hope it's me. Marcus considered that. Then he nodded once. People do surprise you. And this time, he meant it.
The days that followed were quieter than Marcus expected. Not awkward, not heavy, just quiet in a way that left space instead of tension. Victoria didn't call him, she didn't send messages through assistants or find reasons to cross his path. She kept her word. Whatever she had said in that office, she let it stand without pressure. Marcus noticed the absence more than he would have noticed attention. Life continued. Lucy's school play rehearsal ran late. A pipe burst on the third floor and soaked through 2 offices before dawn. He fixed it alone, shoes wet, hands aching, mind steady. But something had shifted. Not hope, not romance, awareness. He found himself noticing things again. The way the building breathed at night. The way people softened when they thought no one important was watching. The way dignity showed up in small choices. Across the building, Victoria noticed things too. She began leaving her office earlier, not to be seen, to walk. She stood in line for coffee instead of having it brought up. She listened longer in meetings and spoke less. People noticed. Some approved, some didn't. A board member pulled her aside one afternoon. "You've been different," he said carefully. Victoria didn't flinch. "I've been paying attention." He hesitated. "Perception matters."
"So does truth," she replied. He frowned. "Truth doesn't always protect you." "No," she said, "but it tells you who you are." That night, she attended the school fundraiser without cameras, no speech, no branding. She sat in the back. Lucy spotted her first. She nudged Marcus hard enough to startle him. "Dad!" He followed her gaze. Victoria stood awkwardly near the exit, coat still on, as if unsure she was allowed to stay. Marcus hesitated. Then he walked over. "You didn't have to come," he said quietly. "I wanted to," she replied. Lucy stepped between them. "You're the letter lady." Victoria smiled. "I am." Lucy studied her face. "You look less scary in real life." Marcus winced. Victoria laughed, softly. "I'll take that," she said. They sat together, not touching, not performing, just present. When the lights dimmed and the children took the stage, Lucy waved once, confidently. Victoria waved back before realizing she was doing it. Afterward, in the parking lot, Victoria paused. "I won't assume anything, but I'd like to see you again, both of you, somewhere that doesn't require pretending." Marcus considered her words, her tone, the space she left around them. "Okay," he said. Lucy grinned. It wasn't a beginning, but it wasn't an ending either.
The city didn't change overnight. The buildings stayed tall. The elevators still broke. People still whispered when they thought power was listening. But something in the rhythm shifted. Marcus didn't notice it at first. He noticed Lucy growing taller, asking harder questions. He noticed his hands hurting less when he worked slower. He noticed that the building no longer felt like something he passed through, but something that passed with him. Victoria noticed the change differently. She stopped measuring days by meetings and started measuring them by moments she couldn't control. Silence, hesitation, the small fear that came with caring without leverage. They met on Saturdays, sometimes at the park, sometimes at the diner Lucy liked, the one with chipped mugs and loud laughter, sometimes nowhere special at all. No labels, no announcements, just presence. People noticed anyway. A photo surfaced, Victoria sitting on a bench, listening while Lucy talked with her hands. No headline, just speculation. Her phone rang. Advisors, board members, one donor who thought concern sounded like authority. "This complicates things," one of them said. Victoria listened. Then she said calmly, "So does honesty." Marcus found out later, not from her, from a coworker who meant well and failed anyway. "She's risking a lot," the man said, "for you." Marcus went home quieter than usual. Lucy noticed. That night, after homework and dishes, he sat alone at the table. The letter lay folded in his wallet, edges worn soft. He didn't want to be someone's risk. He called Victoria. "I need to say something," he said when she answered. "I'm listening." "I don't want you to lose anything because of me." There was a pause. Not hesitation, choice. "I won't," she said. "I might give things up. That's different." "That still feels wrong." "Why?" "Because I've spent my life being the thing people step around. And I've spent mine being the thing people step toward," she said. "Neither of those is balance." Another pause. Then she added, "I'm not choosing you instead of my life. I'm choosing a version of my life that doesn't cost me myself." Marcus exhaled. The next board meeting was short. Victoria stepped down as CEO temporarily, not in defeat, in direction. She remained owner, silent partner, present when needed, gone when not. The headlines were confused, the market dipped, then stabilized.
time did its quiet work. Months passed. Marcus kept his job. He was offered another. He declined, then accepted one closer to Lucy's school. Victoria learned how to wait, how to listen without solving, how to be unseen without vanishing. They never pretended the imbalance didn't exist. They acknowledged it, out loud, often. That's what made it survivable. One afternoon, Lucy asked a question that stopped them both. "Are you afraid?" she asked Victoria. Victoria thought carefully. "Yes," she said, "but not of you or your dad." Lucy nodded, satisfied. Years later, people would tell the story wrong. They'd say a billionaire fell for a single dad. They'd say a public gesture changed everything. They'd say love fixed it. But the truth was quieter. A woman learned to see. A man learned he didn't have to disappear. A child learned that dignity doesn't raise its voice. And the moment that changed everything wasn't public at all. It was the first time none of them felt smaller in the room.